So we are skipping section 10.4 and we're moving on to 10.5, and really 10.5 and 10.6 go together. So this will be the last section of chapter 10 that we have. There's a lot of calculator work going on in this section, so make sure you're paying attention. Especially try to pay attention to whether you have like a newer calculator or an older calculator, like Kaylin, Dallas, Vic. I know y'all typically have the older model. There may be a couple of others of you as well. So just try to pay attention, and I'll try and maybe do another video that shows you like the calculator work. All right, first things first, this notation here, this is a Greek letter sigma. And what sigma represents is a summation, which means we're going to sum or we're going to add the numbers together. So here's how it's going to look. What this is telling you is to find the sum of what you get when you plug in n sub 1 through k into some function f of n. Now, all of that, let's look at the first example to make more sense. The idea is that we're going to take and find the sum. We're going to start when n is equal to 1, and we're going to go all the way to 10, which means we need to plug in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10. We need to plug each of those into 4n minus 7. Then what we get is we're going to add those numbers together. So when you plug in 1, 4 times 1 minus 7 is negative 3. When you plug in 2, 4 times 2 minus 7 is 1. Plug in 3, go all the way to 10. If you plugged in 10, you would have gotten 33. So you would have added negative 3 plus 1 plus 5 plus all of the numbers plus 33, and that's going to get you to 150. On the second example, you're going to start at 3 and go all the way to 8, and you're going to plug those numbers in here. So you plug in 3, plug in 4, plug in 5, and so forth, all the way to 8. So you'd have 2 plus 4 plus 8, blah, 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 plus 64 is going to add to 126. That's how you do this analytically. The problem is if you had to do like from 1 to 100, you don't want to plug in 100 numbers and then add them together. So if we were to use our calculators, for the newer calculators, if you press math and go down to where you see summation, you choose it. And what you can do is all you have to do is fill in the boxes like you see, like you see above. And what you can do is you can use an X instead of an N if you want. Just be careful because the summation already brings up parentheses. Don't necessarily use those, like just leave them there, but you want everything that you do to be inside of the parentheses. So like for that second example, you want the entire 2 to the n minus 2 inside of those parentheses. And when you press enter, you should get 126 just like we did above. On the older calculators, what you have to do is you just have to press more buttons. Sorry. So if you press second stat, right arrow, press it twice. Number 5 should say sum. You want to choose that and then press second stat, right arrow just one time, and number 5 is sequence. So at this point on your screen, you're going to see sum parentheses, sequence parentheses. You're going to type 2 to the x minus 2, make sure that x minus 2 is all in the exponent, comma x, comma 3, comma 8, and then press enter. You should again get 126 just like you did above. Okay. So on these, if you want to practice these, here's what you've got. And then the answers to the practice are right here. So if you didn't get these answers, I would bet that your parentheses are incorrect. So make sure that that should say problem, not probably. Make sure the calculator looks exactly like the problem, like identical. Don't use the parentheses that are given on the new calculator. And when I say don't use, I don't mean delete them. I just mean ignore them. Leave them in place. Just make sure everything's on the inside. Now you can also find what's called partial or cumulative sums. Cumulative means like it accumulates, like you keep adding to it. And so the idea would be that if I said find the first 5 partial sums of 2n plus 6, what you do is you plug in 1 to the formula. So you'd have 2 times 1 plus 6, which is 8. Therefore, your sum is just 8 for the first sum. But on the second sum, you plug in 2. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 6 is 10. For the second sum, you take the first sum, 8, you add 10, and that gives you 18. So you find the first 5 terms, and what you do is you add, for the sums, the first sum is just the 8. The second sum is 8 plus 10. And then the third sum is 8 plus 10 plus 12. The fourth sum is 8 plus 10 plus 12 plus 14. So these are cumulative sums. These are the first 5 sums. You can do this on your calculator also. If you press second stat, right arrow, number 6, that is cumulative sum. Now and then you press second stat, right arrow 5. Now on the newer calculator, you're going to set it up like you see here to the left. On the older calculator, this is how it should look on your screen. So just follow that and make sure you plug it in. So when you plug this in, you should see, and press enter, you should see that you get those same 5 sums from above. Now, what about when the information is not directly given to put in the calculator? Like, what if you don't have a formula? So let's look at this first example. It says find the explicit formula for the nth term, and then use that to find the sum of the first 50 terms. So the idea is that you're not given this sigma, like you're not given this to start. All you're given is 4, 11, 18, 25. The first thing you have to do is ask yourself if it's arithmetic or geometric. So you'd have to go back and think about your definitions from 10.3. This is going to be arithmetic because you're adding 7 every time. So using the formula from section 10.3, we plug in our first term of 4 and our difference of 7. Distribute the 7, combine like terms, and you get 7n minus 3. So that's the explicit formula. When the question says find the sum of the first 50 terms, what that means is we want to start at 1 and we want to go to 50. And we want to do that for 7x minus 3. So to find the sum, you're going to go back up to where you had the instructions for the newer or older calculator right here from the first page. Follow those instructions for plugging this into the calculator. Either way, you should get 8,775. The next example says, find the explicit formula for the nth term of the sequence and use that to find the sum of the first 10 terms. So again, you have to know whether this is arithmetic or geometric. When you look at the sequence -3, -6, -12, -24, hopefully you notice that you are multiplying by 2, so that makes it geometric. So for the formula from section 10.3, we would plug in -3 for the first term, 2 for the r. This is our explicit formula. For the sum, we want to start at 1 and go to 10 because it's the first 10 terms. You plug this into your calculator using the methods we talked about above, and either way you should get -3,069. Okay, so your homework is going to be on both page 521 and 529. And on 521 for 13 through 15, whatever variable you see, you can always just use x on the calculator. That won't matter.